What's up, guys? I want to give a tip today about bluff catching. Super fun topic I like to talk about. Now, there are tons of things that I've learned on this, tons of things I don't know about it. This is a huge topic, one of the most famous and popular things of poker, bluff catching and bluffing. When to do it, when not to do it. How do you catch someone when they're bluffing you? That's what I'm going to go over today. So first point I want to make is this. This is super important. Try really hard not to get so obsessed with very, very specific things. And what I mean by that is this. Someone goes, whenever they bet, they go, and then they put their hands like this. Sometimes people will say, their hands are like this. That means they're bluffing. Their hands do this. When their hands do this, that means they're bluffing. When they when they cough, that means they're bluffing. Whenever they move their leg, that means they're bluffing. Those specific things, those don't very often equate to an exact meaning of something. Those movements are not reliable enough to bluff catch with those specifics. But I will tell you what is reliable. What's reliable is that the normal human being, unless you're a psychopath or a sociopath or some kind of crazy person like that, the normal average person is very uncomfortable being in a lying situation. To lie or to deceive, most people generally, it's uncomfortable. Now, good players and strategic people have learned how to conceal that. But for the most part, like the average person they have a hard time with deception. So we're gonna use that to our advantage in bluff catching. The first thing you wanna do is, instead of focusing on what they might be doing to bluff, that's the wrong area to focus on first. What I like to do is I like to really observe people. I like to observe the table. And when I say observe people, stop thinking so much in your head. Stop really thinking you know something about people and you know things, and simply watch. Simply observe and really listen to understand. Really put aside all what you think you know is right and really understand the people at your table. Seek to see the world through their perspective. Seek to understand from their point of view. And if you can do this, this is going to be huge to your game. Because what you want to do is you want to catch this person and you want to see what they look like when they're being authentic. Okay? You want to catch somebody being authentic, and you want to catch what they look like, what they feel like, what is their energy like. And the reason that is because this helps you create a baseline. It helps you create their normal state of mind when they're being authentic and what they look like. So let's just say Johnny is he's an electrician and he's like, yeah, I've got a family and I'm blah, blah, blah. And he's comfortable. He's talking about his family. He's eating some food. He's like, yeah, man. And he looks at his cards like, you know what? I'm going to raise this $20. And you see, you're paying attention. You're not making judgments on it. You're not saying, oh, he threw it. You're just saying, oh, he threw it out there he seems comfortable. He's willing to eat his food. He's talking, and everyone folds. And and he shows aces. It's like, okay, cool. What did you get from that? You saw what he authentically feels like when he's confident. You saw that he's comfortable betting that way. He is talking. He's comfortable. It's really important to know what they feel like when they're comfortable, what they look like when they're comfortable. So you need more evidence. You need to hear him talk. What does he talk about? And he's like, oh man, I would never bet on that flop with pocket kings. That always has that ace high flop. I would just check it and fold it, and you can tell he's being sincere. You can tell he really would be scared of that ace high board. And you're like, okay, that's interesting. You're learning what he talks like and what he sounds like whenever he's being authentic. Now, bluff catching has a lot more to do with whenever there's a change that happens. It's whenever there's a switch, and you can feel it. The best of players will know this. And you know what I'm talking about whenever you make a great bluff catch. It's whenever you sense a change of energy. Something doesn't make sense, and you don't necessarily know what it is. Sometimes you just kind of you just have a feeling. You can tell that doesn't make sense. Why are they betting so big now, but they were just checking the turn? And well, a lot of times it's because there's a change in energy and there's a change in mindset. Now all of a sudden it's Johnny's raise, and he gets real serious and kind of quiet. He's not eating. He's not talking. He's not comfortable. But what changed? Does that mean he's bluffing? No, don't jump to conclusions yet. What I'm saying is, watch him in his situations, watch what he looks like in his normal everyday play, and then when you get in a big pot with them, you can now decide, like, let's say that Johnny's like, bets 200 like this, and he's like he's got his shoulders up and he's like this, and he's quiet and he's just looking down. He's not very confident, he's not comfortable. I mean, maybe he has the nuts, maybe he has a big hand. And that's where you have to go ahead and put him on the ranges. You gotta know what he did pre-flop, you gotta know what position he's in, you gotta use a lot of other clues. All that is combined in this, but you know what he looked like whenever he raised with aces, and you should be paying attention and see some of his river hands on the river, his showdown. What I like to do is I like to have 3 or 4 confirmation things that they're doing before I'm willing to make a hero call on the river. Sometimes people are like, I'll call them and they're like, how would you call with that hand? How could you do that? And it's like, well, dude, like, first of all, like, this happened, this didn't happen, that happened, and then you're different in this energy, and like, that's my live read, and that's what I'm gonna go with. So like, you gotta trust your instincts, but how are you supposed to have instincts if you're not paying attention to who that person is and how they act normally? So you got to create the baseline. So stop paying attention to their pinky moves whenever they're nervous, or like, those things can kind of help, but you really want to focus on what they look like and what they feel like in their nervous state, and then their confident state, their comfortable state. Okay. One other thing with bluff catching is you can set people up. You can set people up for this stuff. So sometimes what I'll do is I'll be in a big hand with someone, and I'll have a marginal hand, and I'm playing against a maniac, and I have pocket 5s in a 3-bet pot, and sometimes what I'll do is they'll bet huge, and then they'll, like, I've already been paying attention to them. I've already got tells on them. I already can tell what they look like when they're comfortable. They're like, all in, and then they look at me like this. They give me that look. They're like, they're staring me down, their hands are like this, and they're just like this. Man, I want to see it, because now it's like I want to see their cards so bad, because I know what they look like at that moment. I don't know what their cards are, but I know what they feel like. I know his energy. I know they're doing this to me. So sometimes what I'll do is I'll be like, man, I feel like you might be bluffing, but that's just a good bet, man. I think you got me. And what I'll do is I'll fold face up. This is a trick. I'll sometimes fold face up, but I'll almost like goat them. I'll be like, man, I think you got me beat. Even though I think that, if I think they might be bluffing, but I'm not willing to call their bet, but I like to call it out, and I'll show my hand face up, and then they'll be like, they show their card, they got 10-4 offsuit, and they bluffed me. And they're like, yeah, you know, they get to pound their chest, they get their victory, but what they don't realize is that I now know what that person looked like in authentically bluffing. I know what he looks like when he bluffs now, and that's what they don't realize. So what I'll do is I'm really setting them up for bigger pots later down the road. So like if we get in a big hand, and then they're like, because this happened to me. This guy, I folded a pretty decent pot, but then like later on I had a really strong hand, and I checked at him, and he bets huge, and he's like, look at me the same way. And so I was like, okay, that's the first sign of a bluff. The second sign is his bet doesn't make sense, because like nothing really changed in this spot, but then this changed that. Like his story wasn't making sense, and then there was a third tell, which we can get to in other videos. But basically it helped me win a huge pot later down the road, because I was able to set this person up for a bluff. But I was able to know that they were probably bluffing because I know what they looked like. The other thing is, I also watched them raise. He's like, and then he wasn't looking at me one time, and he just was looking, and he kind of was like this. And I was like, man, good bet. And I folded face up again. He's like, shows aces. So I noticed, like, you know, he was doing certain things with aces, but then he was doing certain things when he was bluffing. And you catch on to that, and you set people up. That's a little more advanced stuff, but it really works. So basically, when all is said and done, the trick to bluff catching is this. You want to try to find people in their natural states of their personality. Try to see what their cards are. Do what you can. Use your little tricks. Use your personality to goat them into showing you your hand. Pay attention on the river, because sometimes on the river, they both have to show their hands down, and you get to see their hand. You get to see, and then you're like, oh, I noticed this person was real nervous on the turn. Their energy was nervous. That was their hand. You remember that stuff, and you use that to pick up on tells. Then the tells are more like their energy type, and if it's different than what you've already seen in their authentic setting. You set up a baseline, and the baseline is what their authentic self is, and when they deviate from this baseline, that is one big indicator that it could be a big bluff. It doesn't mean it's the only thing. You should also line that up with the story they're telling with their pre-flop ranges. You should also take into account the type of player they are and like if they're on tilt or if they're a maniac or whatever. But them deviating from the baseline of who they are is awesome, and it feels so great when you get to bluff catch in that kind of scenario. So wish you guys the best. Don't go too crazy bluff catching, by the way. It's you're folding a lot more than you should be folding a lot more than the movies show. So I'm not saying you should be calling all the time, but when you do decide to bluff catch, it should be because of those reasons. Good luck. Peace out.